Are you really in control of your own reality? What makes you decide whether something you see or words you hear are good or bad? Are your moral standards shaped by you, by God, or by what you've been programmed to believe?
Inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump.
Simpsons predicted the future shot by shot because we're part of the Illuminati. Which is true, we are.
What if your worldview is actually not your own, but you've been conditioned to accept it as your own? 7 years ago, I stopped watching TV, and this year I unsubscribed from Netflix because I realized the definite antichrist agenda that is taking place.
And you're seeing it without the interruption, annoyance, and distraction of station breaks or commercials. At the end of the month, Phone Vision will bill you for the subscription service you have received.
In this video, I would like to take you guys on a journey exposing what mental conditioning is and how we have been programmed over the years to accept thinking patterns that are not naturally ours. Now, let me prove to you guys that you have been conditioned. I'm going to use videos, I'm going to use pictures, and I'm going to use other kinds of illustrations to explain as we go along. So let's get into this video. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I would just like to speak with you guys a little bit about my Netflix experience and just some things that God has been revealing to me about not only Netflix but Disney, TV, movies in general. And I just thought a lot of people don't talk about these things, but there's so many crazy things that are happening in our world, and especially as Christians, we need to be aware the devil is out there causing chaos, and I think people are just oblivious to what's going on, or maybe we're just desensitized because we're becoming used to these kinds of things. But it's really important to speak about these things so that we are aware and we always have our guard up. So I stopped watching TV about 7 years ago, and it was actually unplanned because that's when I started my university education. This year when the pandemic started, I was in lockdown and I stay alone. So due to the lockdown, I thought to myself, I'm going to get so bored just sitting in one space by myself. So I was just like, you know what, I know this Netflix thing has been around for so long, let me just download Netflix and see what's out there. People are always talking about cool movies and things like that. Maybe I can use it to pass time or just to entertain me if I'm bored, because I was literally just locked indoors 24/7. So that's how I actually ended up getting Netflix about a couple of months ago. And guys, I only had Netflix for 2 months and then I uninstalled it. I quit Netflix because I realized that the enemy is all over that media, whatever you want to call it. It's something that the devil is really using as a tool to manipulate people and to continually condition their minds to accept things that are unbiblical, to accept things that are, just straight up profanity and blasphemy. And man, I was so alarmed with the kind of stuff that I saw happening on Netflix. Mental conditioning or programming is a process of training your mind to modify your thoughts, attitudes, and beliefs to accept thinking patterns or tendencies or mental states that are not naturally yours. And this is achieved by continuously repeating a particular message, word, or picture to a person or group of people until they accept such an image as the norm. And this is brainwashing. It can even be known as hypnotism because you end up actually achieving another mental state that was not originally yours.
How do you guys figure out the balance in approaching political satire?
My attitude is to try to tell a joke that makes people laugh even if they disagree with the premise.
So let me give you guys an example of a movie on witchcraft which first presented this on our TV screens. The name of this movie is called Head Knobs and Broomsticks. This movie is a Disney movie, one of your earlier movies on witchcraft that came out from way back. And when you initially watch this movie, it actually blatantly says that this movie is about a black witch, and this is basically an evil witch. There is no good witch, by the way. Black witch, white witch, witchcraft is witchcraft. It's a witch who takes in this group of orphans
and 3 homeless Cockney waifs,
and they go on this expedition to find a particular kind of spell.
Their search is supersonic,
which they wanted to use that spell to change certain happenings. So they actually had to go see a sorcerer, and a sorcerer, by the way, is a Satan worshipper. The witch needed the final spell to release whatever forces it was she wanted to. She now introduces these orphans to this magic bed where they extra project, which is what witches do, and they go into this underwater, mommy water. We're talking into the underworld with these kids in this bed with this sorcerer who's a Satan worshipper to go and fetch the spell, which is actually on a star. The name of that star was a star of Astaroth, and if you actually check what that name means, that's actually a demon.
And can you believe they used the real name in the movie? They actually called it the Star of Astaroth. They didn't even hide it.
The king of the underworld was a lion, and of course we know the lion is the beast of all animals, the beast, right? Yeah. So the king of that underworld was a lion, and this lion had a star with the inscription of the spell, and this is a proper witchcraft spell. It's not like it's just for the movie, it's a proper witchcraft spell.
It's family entertainment.
In case you're wondering if the use of a lion was just a coincidence, it's not.
It's part of your satanic trinity, because we know that the devil obviously counterfeits everything that is good, everything that is actually of God. So this is a blatant demon, blatant witchcraft that was in packaged and shown to children. You can imagine, from Disney. And let me tell you guys, Disney is filled with witchcraft. It is actually crazy. They use the signs, the symbols, even the names sometimes. But we are so blinded by the entertainment and pizzazz of everything, not realizing that this is how they slowly start pushing their agenda. So from those early beginnings of putting witchcraft out there so wildly, you now started having other Disney movies, the series, the Wizards of Waverly Palace or whatever. Harry Potter came through. So many witchcraft movies and series that have come over the years, and that's because it starts like a little seed. They plant it, and when they see how the audience receives it, then they begin to produce more and more, and there's more bombardment taking place. That's how these things happen. That's what we call mental conditioning, because I'm sure when the first movie was released, people were having, there was a backlash, but after a while people would accept it. With homosexuality, there was actually a proper way that the entire thing was introduced into the world. It's not by chance, trust me, it's not by chance. You think we all accept it every day now because that's how it was. No, that's not how it was. There's a book that was actually published on how the people who wanted to further homosexuality were actually planning on doing it. It's a step-by-step process.
It is an agenda that they basically set in the late 1980s in a book called After the Ball, where they laid out a 6-point plan for how they could transform the beliefs of ordinary Americans with regard to homosexual behavior in a decade-long time frame. They admit it privately, but they will not say that publicly. In their private publications, homosexual activists make it clear that there is an agenda. The 6-point agenda that they laid out in 1989 was explicit. Talk about gays and the gayness as loudly and as often as possible. Portray gays as victims, not as aggressive challengers. Give homosexual protectors a just case, which means to exploit the sense of fairness basically. Make gays look good, make the victimizers look bad, and get funds from corporate America. And we know that whatever America condones, eventually the world copies.
They have several steps in which they introduced it and made us accept it as a norm. And the first stage in the process is actually called desensitization. This is basically a process by which there is a bombardment of homosexuals, maybe on TV, on media, on advertising, even in schools, billboards, activists and things like that. There's literally a desensitization, which means they'll bombard with these messages so much that you will actually become desensitized to it. Like, let's say for example, right now when you watch the news and you see that somebody let's say was kidnapped or something of that sort, because kidnappings happen so frequently, you will just be like, oh my god, someone has been kidnapped, and that's it. Like, it wouldn't take out so much emotion from you as what it actually requires. The second process is called jamming, and what this basically means is that they come up with a process by which if anyone objects what the agenda is. If someone objects homosexuality, let's say Christians, for example, when Christians say it's against our belief system, to support a man marrying a man, a woman marrying a woman, jamming is basically the process by which that person will be made to look like the villain, and then the homosexual person will be made to look like a victim. So jamming is basically making anyone who is opposed to the agenda look bad and look as though you are a homophobe, whereas it's not actually the case, but it's a kind of manipulation that rather makes people to become fearful of standing against such things, because you would then be looked like someone who is a bad person. Okay, so that's basically what jamming is. Let me just prove to you guys that you have been mentally conditioned to accept certain things that perhaps if you had not been conditioned to see these things, if you had not been desensitized, if you have not been jammed, you will not be thinking the way you'll be thinking right now. Let me prove it to you. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and I need you to answer in your mind, in your heart. And by answering these questions, you will know in your heart that you have actually been programmed, you've been conditioned. And there goes my hair. Okay, let me just fix it. Okay, so the first question: do you believe that it is okay for a man to get married to a man? Do you believe that it is okay for a man to get married to a woman? Do you believe that it's okay for a woman to get married to a woman? Do you believe that it is okay for a man to get married to a child? I'm talking a 40-year-old man getting married to a 3-year-old child, or a 50-year-old woman getting married to a 10-year-old boy. Which of these unions actually do you believe is okay? Now, whatever your answer might be would actually prove how your mind has been conditioned, because the homosexual agenda preaches love is love. Love is love. You can love anyone you want. But that same homosexual agenda is against pedophilia. But isn't it hypocritical then, because you say love is love? That's how your mind has been conditioned, and that's how pedophilia is slowly being ingrained into movies. You notice with the most recent Netflix movie, I think it's called Cuties or something of that sort, where they were sexualizing children. That's how it starts. That's how witchcraft started entering TV. That's how homosexuality started entering TV. Now we have all accepted homosexuality. That's how pedophilia is also going to start entering TV, and very soon they'll tell you that, hey, love is love. So can you guys see how dangerous this thing is? And just to further explain, think about it this way. In certain parts of the world, people actually practice child marriages, and in some communities, child marriages is absolutely normal. It's a part of their religion or their culture. And in other parts of the world, people absolutely shun child marriages. It is a disgrace, it is illegal, and all of that. So it shows that in parts of the world there has been a conditioning of the mind to accept certain sexual behaviors, whereas in other parts of the world that is not the norm. So again, I ask you guys, who is out here actually causing people's minds to become influenced? Who makes the laws? Who sets the moral standard? Because as for me, my standard is set by the God that I serve. My standard is set by Jesus Christ. And whatever is not of Christ, I'm sorry, it's not of me. Whatever is against Christ is definitely anti-Christ. So we have to really be honest with ourselves. We have to be truthful with ourselves. We cannot be out here preaching that we are children of God, and then we are supporting something that is actually mocking Christ and is against our belief system. Like, what are you scared of? Speak the truth. Speak the truth that is in the word of God, and stop putting your money where the devil is trying to stop putting your money where the devil is clearly trying to raise an agenda. Why should I pay to watch satanic occultic movies? Why should I pay to watch people mocking God? Why? It's literally just, I don't even understand. So anyway, after I realized all these things, I just quit Netflix. I was like, I'm just not going back there. Even Disney as well, movies, TV in general, the whole all these things, guys, trust me, they are just to program your mind to think a particular way and to accept certain things that are not of God. Now we might argue that why don't I just stay away from media as a whole since everything is polluted? But the way I see it, we can actually use media, social media, YouTube especially, to spread the gospel of Christ. Like for me, for example, I mostly watch YouTube because I'm able to tailor exactly what I want to see, which is mostly, you know, it might be cooking shows, real estate shows, or any Christian commentary kind of show, which is actually more edifying, and you have the power to actually create content. That's the difference with YouTube. With YouTube you can create content, but with Netflix you don't create, you're literally just a consumer. So it's better to be a creator and to be able to tailor what you watch than just being a consumer where you have absolutely no control what Netflix shows you. And people say that Netflix recommends what you like watching, but for me, Netflix actually didn't recommend, you know, my kind of stuff. It like just kept on pushing out their own original movies and series without actually tailoring it to my preference. So just my 2 cents, be a creator, not a consumer.
Thank you for joining me on my lunch break. Alright, so when Sabrina the Teenage Witch was first brought on TV, she was marketed as a friendly witch, you know, a cartoon, friendly. Before they tried to sugarcoat it, and when everyone accepted it, they now rebranded to a proper full-on hardcore witchcraft series. That's how it goes.
The Hollywood movies, literally almost 80% of the Hollywood content on Netflix was straight up witchcraft, or it was either glorification of witchcraft, satanism, or some form of fornication, or something that was promoting homosexuality. Literally those were all the only things that were on Netflix. So I tried to like stay away from those kind of content and go more towards, you know, your Nollywood content. But I noticed that there's something strange happening with Netflix. Like, I don't know if you guys even realize it's happening, but every single Netflix original movie or series that was advertised, like, you know, when you go on Netflix, they put the new content that has come up, and even if you search the previous Netflix originals that they've done, they must always have a homosexual character in the movies. Even if the character has got absolutely nothing to do with the storyline whatsoever, it will be there. And they will also have some form of witchcraft or spells or some glorification of fornication, sex, the occult, murder, crime. And I was like, this stuff is so it was so consistent to the point that it just did not seem like it was you know, it didn't seem like it was by chance. It just seemed like something intentional. So anyway, these are all the reasons why, you know, after I tried to watch a couple of these Netflix originals, I was just picking up the same vibes. I was like, no fam, there's something going on here. Let me focus on your Nollywood movies. So when I started watching your Nollywood movies, so your Nigerian Netflix movies, I realized that the recent Nigerian Netflix movies are very, very different to what Nigerian movies used to be like. And well, the Nigerian movies that are still produced by Nigerian producers, a lot of them still have, you know, some of the original kind of ideas, but then the Nigerian movies that are also becoming Netflix original movies, you realize that a lot of them have storylines that don't really bring any edification. It's like you watch something from beginning to end and you actually end up being stressed, frustrated, and you end up, your mind is so boggled, you don't even know what you've watched. You're not built up in any way. You know, Nigerian movies back in those days, they used to be something that a whole family would watch and you would pick up a lesson from there. But the Nigerian movies that are coming out these days, especially the ones that are heavily funded by Netflix, you find that they're just totally out of, I don't know, they just seem to be movies that are not grounded. They just seem to be movies that, you know, are just to bring happy feelings, and they have a lot of sexuality in there as well, and again, glorification of crimes. There's one Nigerian movie in particular, which I've forgotten the name, but that movie reminded me of the recent Netflix original movies as well, like your is it Money Heist, or I don't even know what it's called, where they celebrate criminals. So there's something going on with Netflix where things have been twisted upside down, and there's rather a celebration of evil and sin and glorification of crime, where you make the bad guys look good and the good guys look bad, to the point where you actually watch it and your mind begins to accept those kind of things unconsciously, because when it happens so consistently, you actually find that you end up normalizing what you watch so often. You end up thinking that, well, okay, this is how it is. You know, sometimes something that you watch might be so alarming to you, but after some time, your mind will actually take it in as being normal, and before you know it, that's just going to become a part of your thinking pattern. So I want you guys to know that there's something happening not only with Netflix, but with movies in general and series, and this is called mental conditioning. This is called mental conditioning, and this is where your mind is repeatedly bombarded with a specific kind of message over and over and over and over again until you accept it as normal, whereas it is not. And you can also see this to be hypnotism, because I mean, your mind ends up being in a frame where it originally is not supposed to be, but because it has been receiving these pictures, these images, these words, these thoughts so often, it becomes a part of your normal thinking pattern, which is actually not normal.
Quit squeaking that toy.
A lot of people also wonder how the Simpsons producers are able to predict what will happen from decades ago. They would air episodes years ago that will repeat themselves in present time. It sounds a little crazy, right? Well, here's what the director had to say.
Simpsons predicted the future shot by shot because we're part of the Illuminati, which is true, we are.
So I wasn't sure whether to believe what he was saying at face value, so I decided to dig in and find out the origin of the Simpsons, and here's what I found. Brooks asked Matt to come up with an idea for a new cartoon show, and Matt initially wanted to go with the Life in Hell cartoon, but he realized that it would require publication rights for his life's work, so he rebranded the name into The Simpsons, which represents a dysfunctional family. So The Simpsons actually originates from that Life in Hell series, or the 9-panel Los Angeles Way of Death.
Panels, this original Matt Groening from Life in Hell. So I had this on my wall. It was like, great, I love this guy, you know? And Matt was called in. On his way to the meeting with me, in 10 minutes, he drew what became The Simpsons.
Things about being the creator of these animated characters. Can you imagine? Look, I'm the guy that did the first doodle. Now the characters are alive.
Okay, so let's take a closer look at what this Life in Hell is actually all about. Life in Hell is a comic strip by Matt, the creator of The Simpsons, which was published weekly from the 1970s to 2012, and the strip features anthropomorphic rabbits and a gay couple. The comic covers a wide range of subjects such as love, sex, work, and death, and explores themes of angst, social alienation, self-loathing, and the fear of inevitable doom. You can find all this on Wikipedia. Now, I think the honest question we can ask ourselves is, someone who is so deeply affiliated with publishing or writing or scripting things to do with hell and blatantly says that they are in the Illuminati, doesn't that raise any concerns? And just by the way, you know, when one works for the devil, the devil is able to, you know, program that person's life. So it seems as though it's a prediction, but actually the devil can program their lives in, like, there are celebrities that actually know when they're going to die. Can you believe that? There are celebrities that know what they're going to be doing in years to come because their lives have been programmed. When you sell your soul to the devil, you're actually living a programmed life. Not just celebrities, but when it comes to even health outcomes in the world. That's why it seems like these things are predictions, but they're actually just programmed.
How do you think The Simpsons predicts what is going to happen? Almost exactly how it happens. Like, do you think it is by chance? It's not by chance. This is programming, fam. This is programming. This is witchcraft. This is satanism. These people, this life is spiritual. Let me first of all just say, life is very, very spiritual. So we might think these people are fortune tellers. There's no such thing as fortune tellers. It is witchcraft. That's what it is. They even say it themselves, yet we still watch it. Life is spiritual. What you're watching on the media is very, very spiritual. Guard your mind. It's so crazy because when I was watching Netflix, I saw so much witchcraft, guys. There's so much witchcraft on Netflix. Like, most of the series, they have got to do with witchcraft, the occult, satanic satanism, devil worshipping. Some people are gonna think I'm crazy, but guys, this stuff is so antichrist. It's so antichrist. Why would Christians be putting money towards a media platform that is so obviously antichrist? It's so obviously wanting to mock God. There's so many series, movies that are original, and the thing is that they're mostly on Netflix originals that totally blaspheme and mock God, where Christians are just pouring out money to this media house, and I don't know why. So anyway, the reason why Netflix promotes a lot of their Netflix originals, which are majority of the movies that carry all these evil agenda, is because the more you watch Netflix originals, the cheaper it is actually for Netflix, because then they don't have to pay copyrights to, let's say, for example, the original, let's say a movie that was not originally made by Netflix. They are gonna have to buy it, and of course it's going to cost them a whole lot more. But if the audience watches more Netflix originals movies, that saves a lot of money for Netflix as well, and then obviously gives them more power to create more Netflix originals. So guys, we are literally funding the devil to cause people to be mentally brainwashed. That's what Christians are doing, and fam, we need to wake up. Witchcraft is normal to watch on TV. People can literally be bowing down to Satan and praising the occult and demons, and that is now normal on TV. How did we get to this point? Something else that you will notice is that Netflix is very scarce with Christian movies. In fact, they're very few. It took a long time for me to even find some Christian movies, and some of the movies that are titled so-called Christian movies on Netflix are very far from it. You have some series on Netflix that will start and seem as though they are Christian, let's say the Green Leaf, for example, and at the end of the day you will find that it is still the same twisted message, where they will twist in some homosexuality, they will twist in some pornography, they will twist in sexuality and things that are so far from Christ, but then they market it off as Christian content, and you're just like, isn't this just to trap people? Because as a child of God, you will click to watch those things thinking it's going to be edifying, only for you to end up feeling sexually aroused and just feeling in a way that is not godly. Something else that I've noticed with these Hollywood movies and stuff like that is that they like to give Christian characters a very boring role and make Christians rather look somehow weird and strange people who are somehow not in touch with society. They make Christians look as though we are just not even a part of the world, and we are very uncool and very lame people, which is very far from the truth. What actually ended up happening with Netflix is that I got so sick and tired of all these very dark movies, and I decided to actually downgrade my Netflix to children Netflix. Brought my PG rating to 13 because I was like, I want to see what children are watching. So I brought it down to PG-13, and in fact the PG-13 almost had worse it had worse content than even PG-18. I'm like, how is this even PG-13? How are children allowed to watch these things? It's so crazy, guys. But anyway, beware. The enemy is out there to what's with this fly. Beware, guys. Beware what you watch. Beware what you open your ears, your eyes to. These are the gates to your souls, I'm telling you. And demons actually get access into your life through your eyes, your ears. These are gateways. So what you see, what you hear, what you speak, it's eventually going to have a foothold in you, whether you like it or not. Your mind is going to take in these things. That's why the Bible says, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. If your mind is not being renewed by the word of God, trust and believe me, it's being renewed by something else. And if you are fixated on Netflix, you're fixated on all these terribly dark Hollywood movies that depict satanic worship, trust and believe that stuff is slowly getting into your mind. You think it's not, but why do you think sometimes you watch these movies, you end up feeling strange, you end up feeling depressed, you watch a scary movie, you cannot sleep at night? It's like, come on, life is spiritual. Wake up, guys. Wake up, Christians. Like, this is no joke. The enemy is out there to kill, to steal, and destroy. And the thing is that these people, these movie creators, they even announce that they are Illuminati. They announce that they are Satan worshippers. It is all over. They don't even hide it. But Christians will still watch. We will still watch. Like, yo, guys, we need to wake up. We need to wake
From me and my samosa, I will see you guys in my next video. If you guys enjoyed this video, you would like to see me do more of this kind of content, please like, please comment, and more importantly, share with your friends and your family as well. Let's get this word out there to Christians. We need to wake up because the enemy is not sleeping.